शांति शांति। ओम नमो ब्रह्मादिभ्यो ब्रह्म विद्या संप्रदाय कर्तृभ्यो वंश ऋषिभ्यो महद्भ्यो नमो गुरुभ्यः। सर्वोपप्लवरहितः प्रज्ञानघनः प्रत्यगर्थो ब्रह्मैवाहमस्मि। ब्रह्मैवाहमस्मि। वेदान्तार्थ विभासकाय गुरवे शान्ताय सन्न्यासिने नानावादिनखेन्द्रसङ्घपवये योगीन्द्रवन्द्याय च मोहध्वान्तदिवाकराय भगवत्पादाभिधां बिभ्रते तस्मै भाष्यकृते नमोऽस्तु सततम् पूर्णाय बोधात्मने। ब्रह्माहं यत्प्रसादेन मयि विश्वं प्रकल्पितम् श्रीमत्स्वयं प्रकाशाख्यम् प्रणौमि जगतां गुरुम्। यः परमात्मा जगत् सृष्ट्वा प्रविवेश पुनः स्वयं तं कृष्णं प्रत्यगात्मानं वन्दे गोपी मनोहरम्। यस्य प्रसादादहमद्वयात्मा विश्वं समस्तं मयि कल्पितं च तं सर्वलोकैकगुरुं सदाश्री स्वयं प्रकाशं गुरुमानतोऽस्मि। गुरूणां चरणाम्भोजं प्रणिपत्य निरन्तरं तत्कृपालेशतोऽद्वैत चिन्ताकौस्तुभमारभे। एवं सृष्ट्यादि निरूपण प्रसंगागत गतम उपासना विचारम परिसमाप्य परम प्रकृतम उपसंहरति एवं इति. So on page number 113 in the original text, एवं तत्पदार्थस्य मायोपहितस्य ब्रह्मणः तटस्थलक्षणं जगज्जन्मादि कारणं निरूपितम्. Now we have seen that the topic of upasana, which came under the umbrella of discussing the Tatpada, the meaning of the word Tat. Now, having completed that, concluded that, we come back to the Parama Prakrita Vishaya, meaning the original topic with which we had begun. And the original topic was the topic of Adhyaropa Apavada, meaning superimposition and desuperimposition. Mayopahita chaitanyasya, consciousness with the conditioning of Maya. What is the upadhi here? Maya. The conditioning is the conditioning of Maya. Samashti karana jnanam. So Mayopaita chaitanyasya, this consciousness, the same consciousness, there is no change in consciousness. There are not many consciousnesses. Consciousness being one, with the conditioning of Maya, is called as the Lakshanam, is the Lakshanam meaning, is the meaning of the word Tat. Brahmanaha Tatastha Lakshanam. And moreover, this is the Tatastha Lakshana. Lakshana meaning the distinguishing characteristic by which a person will be able to identify just that object without confusing it with anything else, or without leaving any part of what has to be understood. To understand something, to know something, to identify something in its entirety is the work of the Lakshana. This Lakshana then is the Lakshana of Brahman, of Parameshwara. But the thing peculiarity about this Lakshana is that this Lakshana is Tatastha Lakshana. How is it? Tatastha Lakshana. Tatastha meaning that without being involved in the nature of that object, the characteristic is yet able to distinguish the object and show it. Now, you know, how you remember the example of the cow. And any characteristic will become a Lakshana only when that characteristic is able to show the object defectlessly, without any defect. Meaning, the defects which we have already known are 3 in number. Avyapti, Ativyapti, and Asambhavana. And every time you need to really recall how the Lakshana works. Lakshana works. Remember the example of the cow. Okay. So if a person wants to know what a cow is, because he has obviously not known, he doesn't, assuming that he does not know what is a cow. So how would he know, even if the cow was to stand in front of his eyes, he wouldn't know this is a cow. This animal is called as cow. He wouldn't know that. And therefore, though the eyes are perceiving, yet he is not able to understand, know, cognize this is cow. And hence there is the need of having the distinguishing characteristic along with the pramana. And that's why whenever we say that what is Vastu Siddhi, how do you know anything? There are these two things involved. Lakshana Pramana Bhyam Vastu Siddhi. So Lakshana is required. But Tatastha Lakshana is that Lakshana which does not belong to the object intrinsically. It doesn't belong to the object intrinsically. Hmm? It is not embedded in the nature of that object. Yet this characteristic can function as a lakshana. Not any characteristic can function as a lakshana. You know that. So if you say cow is an animal with 4 legs, this is a characteristic. And this characteristic, though belongs to the cow, yet we cannot call it as a distinguishing characteristic. Now you only tell me, if you are going to say cow is an animal with 4 legs, now this can be a horse, a buffalo, a deer, a dog, a rabbit, a rat. Now look at that. You wanted to understand what is cow. And by showing that characteristic of 4 legs, animal with 4 legs, Chatushpadatvam, if this was going to be the Lakshana, it would rather not function as a distinguishing characteristic. It is a characteristic, yet it is not a distinguishing characteristic. It will not be able to show you the cow by differentiating it from a rabbit, from a dog, from a buffalo, from a deer, from a bear, from a tiger, from a lion, so on and so forth. Because all of them are Chatushpada Pashus, all of them are 4-legged animals. So remember how important it is to have the characteristic as the distinguishing characteristic. So something can function, some characteristic can function as a distinguishing characteristic without being intrinsic to the object too. This is how our cognition is taking place. And why are we even talking about all this cognitive process? Because we have to cognize what is Parameshwara. We have to cognize what is Parameshwara, because in knowing Parameshwara, one will be released from the bondage of suffering. So there is a prayojanam. It is not simple curiosity. Okay, let us see what is God. No. There is a prayojana, and the prayojana is not an ordinary prayojana. It is mahat prayojanam. It is the ultimate prayojana. So the person who has been able to understand or is able to experience that this is my prayojana, this is my purpose. Now he has come to that point in life where the whole existence wants the human being to reach. So he is almost on the peak of evolution, because beyond this there is nothing more, and therefore he is on the culmination, on the top. And beyond this, what is there? There is no returning back to the samsara. So don't think that anything which has gone to the peak will have to come down to the valley. From here, there is no return. Yad gatva nivartante tatham paramam mama. So it is not how a roller coaster ride that you go high up and then fall back into the suffering, which is samsara. Dukkhasya atyantika abhava is there. So now he says, evam tat padarthasya mayopahitasya brahmanaha tatastha lakshanam. What is the tatastha lakshanam? Jagat janmadi karanatvam. The cause of this world. Now this world means because the world is something that is immediate. And then it goes, you can let it extend as much as it wants to in time and space. But time and space by itself is also Jagat. And therefore, Jagat Janmadi Karanatvam Nirupitam, including this body, mind, ego, senses, pranas, everything is this world. Tatastha Lakshanam Nirupitam. Ayam eva adhyaropaha iti uchyate. Now the teacher says, this itself is called as adhyaropa. This is not English rope. This is adhyaropa. Adhyaropa means superimposition. Keep this word with you because he will help us to understand the word very clearly in the commentary part on 114. Evam. So the original line said evam. What is that evam? Evam means uktaritya. In the way it has already been explained, expounded. Uktaritya. So it has been said. The Tatastha Lakshanam is given. Evam is given. That evam, just the word seems to be that just, evam. It means everything that is there up to page number 114 from page number 1. So don't forget the word evam is laden with this load of all that is there. Okay? Evam uktaritya. So now the student says, Nanu, on page number 114, the commentary section, second paragraph, second line. Nanu adhyaropa apavadayu brahma pratipatti hetutvat tavapi nirupaniyo iti ashankya brahmano mayadvara sukshma sthula prapancha srishti nirupanamukena jagat janmadi karanatva nirupanam eva adhyaropa nirupanam iti aha ayameva. This is really nice because, having said so much, a person may come and say, sir, now somebody tells the whole of Ramayana, and at the end of that katha, of that lecture, this gentleman comes and says, wonderful, what a wonderful lecture. But sir, I have a doubt. Who is Sita? Really. Who is Sita? This is his doubt. Like that, having explained so much, now somebody is going to come and ask, what is Adhyara? What is superimposition? So to make that clear, he says, Adhyaropa apavadayoho brahma pratipatti hetutvat. Sir, this is all nice. Whatever has been said so far, we have grasped whatever you have said. Yet in the beginning, you had declared that Brahman can be known through Adhyaropa and Apavad, through the process of superimposition and desuperimposition. So then, therefore, our request is that whatever Jagat Janmadi Karanatvam you have explained, yet kindly explain what is Adhyaropa and Apavad also. Because that is the only way Brahman can be known. And that was what your Pratishya was. That is what you had declared, committed yourself to. Brahma Pratipatti Hetutvat Tav Api. Even those two things, which two things? Superimposition, desuperimposition. What is the Shastriya word for this? Adhyaropa is superimposition and Apavad is desuperimposition. You please explain us even these two. Tavapi nirupaniyo. Therefore, it is very, you should tell us that. Iti ashankya. This may be the doubt in the student's mind. And therefore, Brahmana Mayadvara Sthula Sukshma Prapancha Srishti Nirupana Mukhena Jagat Janmadi Karanatva Nirupanam. Now he says, what did we explain it to you? That the world has come into existence, or the world exists because Brahman is the cause. And how does the Brahman become the cause? Through the conditioning of Maya. Through the conditioning of Maya. Brahmana Maya Dvara. So what is the Dvara? The Dvara means that which has become the cause. Maya Dvara Sukshma Sthula Prapanchas Srishti Nirupana Mukhena. By the way of explaining how this world has, and the world also he makes it very clear. What do you mean by the world? Everything that can be just not seen as the physical objects, but that even which cannot be perceived by the eyes or perceived by the senses. Take a chair if you want. Okay. You can take this book. We are on page number 140. Yeah. So now there are several things. Now let us say, when a person says, I am angry, can you say, how does the anger smell? Can you say, how does the anger, what is the color and form of the anger? So no, sir. But can you deny that there is anger? No. you cannot deny. And therefore, something that exists and its existence cannot be denied. But what can be said about it is that it still is something which is directly experienced by the person as clearly as somebody perceives a berry, an apple on the palm of the hand. Okay, in the commentary section, so there are these two parts in that book. Do you see? So the Sanskrit part, we are there in the second paragraph, which is not in bold. So that line, Nanvadhyaropa apavadayogo brahma pratipatti hetutvat tau api nirupaniya vidyashankhya brahmano maya dvara sukshma sthula prapancha srishti nirupana mukhena. That part, that line. So even the sukshma prapancha also exists. And how has all this come into existence and continues to exist? Over there it is said it is because of Brahman. And this Brahma Vastu is the cause only through the conditioning of Maya. And therefore, Brahmanaha Maya Dvara Sukshma Sthula Prapancha Srishti Nirupana Mukhena. What has happened? Jagat Janmadi Karanatva Nirupanam. So now the explanation which was given of Brahman, which is actually the explanation in the sense, it is, what is it actually? The Lakshanam, the distinguishing characteristic. The distinguishing characteristic of Brahman is Jagat Janmadi Karanam. Okay. This itself is called Adhyaropa Nirupanam. This explanation which was given to us itself is the process in which Adhyaropa, meaning superimposition, was explained. Adhyaropa Nirupanam iti aha. Then furthermore he says, Ayameva adhyaropaha iti uchyate. This itself is adhyaropa. Adhyaropa meaning superimposition. What is that? Atasmin tad buddhihi. Atasmin tad buddhihi. Tasmin tad buddhi is knowledge. Let us say, understand this. There is a rope. And to understand the rope as a rope, so there is understanding, buddhi, tasmin. So what is it that the buddhi is grasping presently, that particular object? So the buddhi is in that tadvastu, tasmin. But if the buddhi fails to understand the rope as rope, but conceives it as a snake. So though the object is rope, you understand it as a snake, is tasmin, atasmin, it is not a snake, yet you are understanding it as a snake, makes it what? Atasmin tad buddhi. Okay, makes it atasmin tad buddhi. What you see as this world is nothing but Parmeshwara alone. Though this is all Parmeshwara, one continues to see this world exactly in the same manner, like a person continues to see the rope as the snake. Atasmin tad buddhihi adhyaropaha. Furthermore, apavada nirupanam pratijanite. So now Adhyaropa was told up, up to this point. Now the process of apavada is told. What is apavada? Asya apavadashcha idanim uchyate. Now, whatever is seen as adhyaropa, it needs to be cleared off. Because it is atasmin tad buddhi. It is what? Atasmin tad buddhi. That needs to be cleared off. So the superimposition, washing up of the superimposition is called as desuperimposition. So the snake is superimposed on the rope. Then to understand that whatever I was perceiving as snake is nothing but the rope, is removal of the snake. And that itself is the end of the snake. Understanding the rope, presently not the rope, understanding that what was perceived as the snake is nothing but the rope, is the end of this snake, which is superimposition, and therefore this understanding is called as apavada, desuperimposition. The word is apavada, apavadaha. Koyam, now he has already committed. Pratijna has been done. Idanim adhyaropa nirupanananta. Well, apavada nirupanam pratijanite. Pratijanite means he now is doing the pratijna. What is pratijna meaning? He is declaring his commitment to do something. And what is that commitment for? For explaining what is desuperimposition. Idanim adhyaropa nirupananantaram. So if you are going to look at the original sentence in the original, in the sense, the text in the original, the sentence in the original text, idanim asya apavadascha idanim uchyate. Idanim means now. But what is that now? Idanim means adhyaropa nirupananantaram. After desuperimposition can be explained only when superimposition has been understood. Okay. Otherwise, how would you have access even to that kind of an understanding? So, idanim adhyaropa nirupananantaram. Why are you saying this? Let there be any adhyaropa, but we will be able to catch it up. And you simply continue to explain us what is apavada. He says, no, sir. Prasaktasya pratisheda sambhavad iti bhavaha. Because that what is prasakta meaning that what is available only can be removed. Prasaktaha. Now let us say in this room, if I tell somebody who's sitting, just remove the elephant from this room. Which elephant? There is no elephant over here. So that what is not available or that what is absent cannot be removed. Prasaktasya pratishedha sambhavati. That what is prasakta, meaning that what is now available, upalabdha, that what is prasakta, that alone can be removed. Only if you have understood what is superimposition, then there is a possibility that you can understand what is desuperimposition. And why are we talking about superimposition and desuperimposition? Because, and what the technical words are, adhyaropa apavada. Because it is only through this process of Adhyaropa and Apavada, Parameshwara can be understood. Brahma Sakshatkara is possible. But who wants it? Who wants to know what is Parameshwara? We are interested in doing the other things. So now, therefore, it will. The prayojanam is, as I said it before, or I always have, it is Mahat prayojanam. Meaning, in knowing Parameshwara, suffering comes to an end. Nothing else has the capacity to end the suffering. Everything else simply allows the continuation of suffering, just in different form. Somebody says, I'm suffering, I'm unhappy, I'm dissatisfied with life because I'm unmarried. So obviously, what is the obvious reason that a person is going to state for his suffering is that being not married, right? So then what would he do? Get married. Now he says, well, now there is a responsibility of, one more person and keeping up the relationship and several other demands which one has to keep on fulfilling. Now his suffering still continues to suffer, whereas the suffering ended. He may not be having the suffering of not being married, but now he's suffering that I'm married and I have other things to do. So it is continuation of suffering in different form. So it means it is old wine in the new bottle. It just continues. No matter what you do, where you go, whether you're married to this person or some other person, it continues. Whether you're married or unmarried, suffering continues. Whether you are there in this mortal world or in some celestial world, irrespective of all that, whether you have money or you don't have money, suffering continues. Whether you have children or you don't have children, suffering continues. Why? People with children also are suffering. People without children are also suffering. The poor man is suffering. The rich man is suffering. The educated man is suffering. The uneducated, illiterate fellow is also suffering. Men are suffering. Women are suffering. So if somebody says, oh, men are suffering, that's why I want to change my gender and become a woman. Now this woman, I'm suffering even as a woman. So look at that. No matter what you do, where you go, irrespective of all these conditions, the suffering does not end. And that's why the Upanishads have already declared Tarati Shokam Atmavid. Shokam meaning the suffering comes to an end only in knowing Paramatma. Atmavid, with means the Vidwan, he who knows. So what is the cause of the end of suffering? What is the cause which puts an end to the suffering altogether? And we are not saying that it is transformation of suffering. Okay, we are not interested any longer in the transformation of suffering, but we want to know what is going to put an end, an absolute full stop, not a comma, a semicolon to the suffering, but to end the suffering is only in knowing Parameshwara. All right. So therefore, now the teacher said, the process as shown by the Upanishad, by the Vedanta, that how Parameshwara can be known, this process is called as the process of Adhyaropa Apavada, superimposition and desuperimposition, because it is a process of knowledge, simply knowing, and therefore idanim, now up to this point, Adhyaropa Nirupananantaram, idanim means now, so anantaram, anantaryarthe. Idanim, now Adhyaropa has been explained till page number 114. Now what is called as Apavad, meaning desuperimposition, will be explained. But why can't we simply jump to desuperimposition? Because if the superimposition is not available, how can you even remove the superimposition, which is desuperimposition? Prasaktasya pratisheda sambhavad iti bhavaha. All right. Koyam apavadaha. What is this apavad? Apavad meaning desuperimposition, because the words will have several meanings, and you have to be very cautious as in what context that the word has been used. When used over here, the word apavad means desuperimposition. It is not anything else. Loka apavad means people accusing somebody of something. That is loka apavad. And so the word apavad over means accusation. Over here, the word apavada means desuperimposition. Koyam apavada iti akanshayam tat swarupam aha. Now, because this akanksha, a desire to know, has risen, tat swarupam aha. Its nature is being narrated. Aha. Apavado nameti. So in the original text, on the topmost paragraph, the down below, which is there in a different font, is the commentary section, and that which is there on the top is the original text, Mula Grantha. So in the Mula Grantha, Apavado nama adhishthane bhrantya pratitasya tad vyatirekena abhava nishchayaha. Apavado nama. What is called as apavad? It is this. Iti akanshayam tatsvarupamaha. Now that there is an akanksha, there is a demand, there is a desire, akanksha, there is some sort of an ichha, a desire. Tatsvarupamaha. Apavado nama. Abha. Apavadi means adhishthane bhrantya pratitasya tad vyatirekena abhava nishchayaha. Kindly underline that sentence so that it should not be forgotten. This is a very, very important definition of the word apavad. Adhishthane bhrantya. You people had Sanskrit in school? You had? No, okay, so you understand, that's okay. Adhikaranam. Adhikaranam meaning mota moti on a just broader scale. It simply would mean a base, location. Adhikaranam means a location. Substratum, meaning the substratum. Something is experienced. Pratitasya. Pratiti means an experience. Another very important thing at this point is that something is not a fact just because you experience it. And our general claim is something is a fact, a truth, because I experience it. But this is getting hinged off any reason, like loose, because the person has not really given a thought to it analyzed it very closely. Or how can that be not real? Because I have experienced myself. That is what people say. Hey, you can experience anything. Just experiencing does not bestow the status of factuality on anything. It does not. It is not a certification of being a truth, of being the reality, of being a fact. No, sir, it doesn't. So, pratitasya, something is experienced. But because of an error, bhrantya, bhranti meaning an error, because of a wrong understanding, there is an experience. And whatever is experienced will be experienced on a substratum. Without the base, without the substratum, without that object, the experience cannot be had. So please, this is the first condition. Adhishthane bhrantya pratitasya tad vyatirekena. Apart from that object which is experienced by you does not have any existence apart from its substratum. This is the whole sentence. Whenever, keep this in mind, whenever something is experienced and whatever that experienced object is does not have a separate, segregate existence apart from its substratum, that object is false. That object is false. The certainty of this knowledge that it is false, the falsehood when is certainly understood, this is called as apavada, the superimposition. This, so nishchaya eva, nishchayaha eva is called as the superimposition. It is not conviction. It is certainty of knowledge. What is certainty of knowledge? It means a great degree of clarity, A, and B, it means knowledge which is set free from any doubt is nishchayaha. Okay, so not conviction. The teacher is not meant to convince you. Convincing is a job of a marketing person. A teacher is not over there to convince you. If a teacher is persuading you, then the teacher is not a teacher. The teacher would not be doing the job of a teacher. He is doing a job of marketing. So not that. Nishchayaha. Okay. Furthermore, sir, we need an example to understand this. The principle needs to be understood, and understanding will become easy if an example is supplied. So there we go. Uktamevartham udaharati yatheti. Now, whatever was told to you crisply in just concise words is given to you now, explained to you through an example. Yatha shuktyadau bhrantya pratitasya rajatadehe shukti vyatirekena nedam rajatam kintu shukti iti abhavanishtayaha. There is a lot in this. The whole sentence is laden with meaning. Now here, yatha shuktyadau, shukti meaning the shell, which we find on the seashore. So a shell, shukti, shuktyadau bhrantya. So somebody goes to the seashore or on the bank of a river when the sun has almost set and there is some darkness, yet there is very inadequate light, you can say. There is inadequate light, and he happens to see silver strewn on the sand. some silver. The person rushes to that place, lifts it up, but is disappointed because it was nothing but a shell. So Shuktyaro Bhrantya Pratitasya Rajatade. What was experienced by him? Rajatam. Rajatam meaning silver. Huh? Huh? Silver. Rajatam. Rajatam means silver. So he experiences silver. Now, if this person has to claim that the silver is real because I am experiencing it, how absurd would that be? Why would you call it that as absurd? Because he has a logic to say that something which is experienced by me is a fact. Well, sir, if it is a fact, might as well take it home. And when he goes to take it, he discovers that it is Shukti. What is it? A shell, a nacre. Yatha Shuktyado Bhrantya Pratitasya Rajatadehe. Now, if this example is acceptable, because an example has to be acceptable to both the parties. Ubhaya Paksha Sammatam. An example should be that which is Ubhaya Paksha Sammatam, which is acceptable to both the parties. Then only it can serve as an example. So, Shuktyado Bhrantya Pratitasya Rajatadehe. So, Shukti Rajatam is an accepted example. Well, it is actually a shell, but it is experienced as silver, and experiencing it as a silver is because of it is basically an error. It is an error. So, Bhrantya Pratitasya Rajatadehe. So now we have all the material that is required present with us in the example to understand in principle what was said before about apavad. Here it goes. So what all things? An object is there, but the object is understood as something other than the object itself. It is shell. But if you were to experience or understand and see it as a shell, we would say it is knowledge. To know the shell as shell would be knowledge, but to know the shell as silver is an error. Okay, so this is an error. So we have this, we agree in principle, Ubhaya Paksha Sammatam, both of us agree that there is an error. And what all the things are there? There is an object, Adhishthanam, okay, the base. Now, question comes: would you experience a silver, that silver, if the shell was absent? Would you experience the silver if the shell was absent? No, sir. So, what is the prerequisite over here? The prerequisite is that the shell should be present. The shell needs to be there in the place so that the silver can be experienced. But then every time there is a shell, would you experience silver? No. You require other few things too. Inadequate light. Another thing is that not knowing it is a shell. So ignorance about the object is required. Without the ignorance, an error cannot take place. So erroneous knowledge is actually the product of ignorance, not knowing. So what you are calling as knowledge is actually not knowledge. Erroneous knowledge, the word itself is carrying the word knowledge or not. So is it knowledge? No. And therefore, an erroneous knowledge is not knowledge. Erroneous knowledge is an error. So if the example is now understood by us, acceptable to both the parties, now this can become an example, whatever. Ubhaya Pakshi Sammatam is called as Drishtanta. Yatha Shuktyago Bhrantya Pratitasya Rajatadehe. If this much is there, well, sir, we can pause at this point and then take up the rest of the sentence, which will bring us the contents of the original sentence that we want to see. Adhishthane bhantya pratitasya tad vyatirekena bhavanishchayah. We have to understand this part, and which we will see tomorrow morning again. Brahmaham yat prasadena Mai Vishwam Prakalpitam Shrimat Swayam Prakashakhyam Pranavami Jagatam Gurum Yah Paramatma Jagat Srishtva Pravivesha Punaswayam Tang Krishnam Pratyagatmanam Vande Gopi Manoharam Yasya Prasadadahamadvayatma Vishwam samastam mayi kalpitancha tam sarvalokaika gurum sada shri swayam prakasham gurumanatosmi gurunam charanam bhojam pranipatya nirantaram tatkripa dvaita chinta kaustubhamarabhe om purnamadaha purnamidam purnaat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate Om Shanti 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 Shankaram Shankaracharyam Keshavam Badarayanam Sutrabhashyakrito Vande Bhagavanto Punah Punah Ishvaro Gururatmiti Murti Bheda Vibhagine Vyomavadvyaptadehaaya Dakshinamurtaye Namaha. Thank you very much. Thank you all.